We are here today with Brie Thompson, who founded Olivelle after graduating from college in 2006, along with her mom, Michelle, in her hometown of Bozeman, Montana. Brie aimed to source high-quality infused oils and vinegars for the newly independent shop, but struggled to do so, disappointed by the available offerings where suppliers were compensating for lower quality oils by masking them with flavors. So Brie did what entrepreneurs do when they can't buy what they want. She started to make them and source your own products. So beginning with one high quality single estate extra virgin olive oil, which is a groundbreaking move in the industry, Brie set out to craft uniquely flavored olive oils. Today, Olivelle crafts over 150 products that can be ordered directly or purchased at many retail locations, including one right here where I sit in Ames, Iowa, Cook's Emporium, shop that is in our downtown. We're in a series of podcasts inspired by a case study of Steve Jobs, the Apple and Pixar fame. Jobs' work exemplifies Ethic 5, be the real you. This is the authenticity orientation of entrepreneurship. We're inspired by Steve Jobs' mantra of insanely great products. So I'm interviewing entrepreneurs who embody the same, like Brie. Today we'll talk about insanely great olive oils and vinegar. Brie, welcome and thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. I really appreciate you including me in this.
Yeah. Well, take us back to 2006 when you founded your business. Why olive oil? Why
Well,
vinegars?
long story, not long story. My mom and I actually was 22 years old at the time. I just graduated from university. I was a University of Montana graduate in Missoula, Montana. I grew up in Bozeman, Montana, but my family grew up cooking together. We loved food. We loved the time we spent in the kitchen and the experience around that. I'll never forget, my mom would always enter cooking competitions. So she actually won the cooking competition for Spam for the state of California, of all things. So that's like the epitome of my childhood. My mom would decide that she was going to make something good, and then she would test and test and test until it was perfect. So she had a killer apple pie recipe, and she ended up winning with a chicken pot pie with Spam in it. And I think it was because she kind of masked the Spam with her amazing crust, is my guess. But
so Spam competition sounds more Montana or Iowa than California, but hey.
nope, it was definitely in California. And then it went on to nationals, which was, I believe, in the Midwest somewhere. So it was fun, but it was just all about food and all about experimenting with food and creating great things with food. So we kind of grew up cooking together. And then I was 22, I was in college, about ready to leave. I was always very much into business. In high school, I ran the student store. In college, I was really involved in marketing competitions and advertising competitions. And I loved the competitive element. I loved getting creative. I loved marketing. And so my mom knew that I was planning on moving far away. And I think she kind of roped me in with the idea of opening this retail store. And we actually opened a franchise store in our hometown of Bozeman, Montana in 2006. The franchise was called Oil and Vinegar.
Okay.
And surprisingly enough, about 6 months after we opened, the franchise was a European franchise. So there was only about 8 stores in the US and about 150 in the world. About 5 or 6 months after we opened, they gave us a call and said, "We are filing for bankruptcy. We're pulling out of the United States. Make your last order and good luck." And mind you, I didn't grow up with money. My dad was an electrician. My mom had a cleaning company, which was basically just her cleaning. We were very basic family.
So
We didn't have a lot of money.
had you paid a franchise fee to get started?
We'd paid a franchise fee. We'd bought expensive signage. We had all the furniture they required. That was our entire supply chain. We literally were not allowed to purchase from anyone else at the time. And mind you, we had mortgaged my parents' house to make this happen. I was 22. I had nothing. I'm like writing on the back of their mortgage to help make this happen. I had the ideas and the creativity, and I was going to do whatever I need to do. But it was definitely, I remember sitting in my mom's office, and I remember crying and smiling at the same time because I was like, what are we going to do? We have literally just lost everything. But at the same time, I felt so optimistic for the opportunity ahead. And I knew there was so much more that I could do than had previously been allowed. So that was kind of the start of our journey. It was forced upon us, but at the same time, it was exciting. The next few years were hard. Um, I was trying to source products from all over. I was getting samples of olive oil in. I could taste these like metallic flavors on them. I could taste things that didn't feel right. I knew something wasn't right. Um, and so basically I started working with one of my single estate suppliers, one of the ones that I knew that I could trust. I knew that the flavor was there, and I started figuring out how to infuse this oil myself. And then
So
that's
had you traveled to Italy at some point then to meet
So
some of your suppliers?
at that time, I actually had a gentleman out of California that had done some importing, and I had kind of worked with him and built a little relationship. And he had told me he was going over to a food show in Italy, and I said, "Kelly, can I come with you?" And I'm 23 at the time. I've barely left Montana. Like I've never left the country except for, yeah, maybe a little trip to Mexico. Um, and I hopped on a plane and went over to Italy. Now, mind you, this is before cell phones. So I remember I flew into Italy and I'm supposed to meet this guy, and he didn't fly in. So he didn't meet me where he was supposed to meet me. So I'm in the airport in, um, I believe in Florence, and there's an overhead speaker that calls my name, and I had to go to a desk. Well, this is 19 years ago now. Um, it's just funny to think back how technology has changed our lives. Even at that time, like I remember this plane ticket to get over there was $800, and I was freaking out because I was like, how am I going to afford this $800 ticket? But I knew I had to, because I knew I had to get over there to start sourcing the products. And so we just did it.
So did you grow up with olive oil as being one of these things that was present in your household, so you knew something about it going into this, or?
That's actually a really good question, because I mean, think back 18 years ago, nobody was using olive oil unless you were an Italian family. I mean, it was all corn and canola oil. I think Cooking Light magazine was promoting canola oil exclusively. We actually did not grow up using olive oil, but my neighbor, so my mom's neighbor or my parents' neighbor growing up, she actually ended up getting breast cancer. And I remember she had a doctor that gave her a book about fats and a book about good fats versus bad fats and understanding hydrogenated oils and the processing of oils. And it was just happenstance that my mom was close enough with her, and our neighbor Debbie passed the book on to my mom, and my mom read it, and it was like this eye-opening experience for her that olive oil should actually be, or cold pressed oil should actually be the oils we're using because of the way your body processes them and enjoys them. So I know it's funny you think about the things that come together to make this happen. So we became obsessed with olive oil at that time. And I'll never forget, I actually got my mom a Christmas gift. So I told you I was part of a franchise when we first started. And what happened is I was going to college in Missoula, Montana. This European franchise store had opened up, and I went into this store blown away. I was tasting all these different olive oils and balsamic vinegars, and my world exploded with flavor. I didn't understand the possibilities and how much more exciting cooking could be. And I'll never forget, I got this beautiful Italian pasta bowl, and I filled it with oils and vinegars, and I brought this home as a Christmas gift for my mom when I was in college. And I've never been more excited to give her a gift, because I was the kid that I'll never forget. I bought my mom a snow cone machine when I was little because I thought that was a good idea, but mostly because I wanted it. This was the first gift I think that I was actually excited to give my mom that I knew she would enjoy, because she had found the idea of olive oil and liked olive oil. So I gave her this gift, and I was elated with myself. I'd finally done a good gift giving experience. And then we started talking, and we decided to open the franchise in our hometown of Bozeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to think back to my own journey, and yeah, I'm older than you, so it goes back further, but it probably was, anyway, it's an issue related to those oils that were being used, but I was probably exposed in the 1990s to the idea that trans fats
Yes.
were really bad. And
Yeah.
then it turns out other vegetable oils, that the trend at the time was, oh, this is better than animal fats or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think
The
that's the
market.
case. And then
Yeah.
you start to read about omega 3s and omega 6. Yeah. So anyway, I nerd out on some of this stuff. And then just taste of it. So yeah, at some point, olive
And
oil became just a practically daily thing
I know.
for
And I think
me.
that's
And then a trip to Italy definitely reinforced that at some
solidifies
point.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what's fun about our journey with the business too, is 18 years ago when we started, people were using margarine. I mean, butter was still barely a thing because for a while it was all about calories. It wasn't, people weren't recognizing what had been done to that in the trans fats. And then when you start learning about it, and so when I first started with our retail store, we just had to teach people about olive oil and why you would even use olive oil. So even our message has changed over the years because back then we were talking about olive oil versus other oils. Now people just come in and they know they want olive oil. We just get to show them good olive oil.
Yeah, flashback to my own time at home with my folks. At some point, my mother, yeah, started bringing in margarine, and
Yeah.
my dad, who was a farmer,
Yeah.
and it was an interesting place, but just to have anything other than butter was deeply offensive to him. And it wasn't from a health perspective, but like when he was a kid, this is the 1950s when margarines were new. As a matter of fact, he called it oleo, which it
Yeah.
had been, and they were like, they didn't even put yellow food coloring in. So it like was white.
Oh,
But,
wow.
his mother would make butter sometimes, but when it wasn't milking season anymore, like she would
Yeah.
buy margarine because it's what you bought in town. And like it was easier than butter. Anyway, dad just considered it like we will never be so poor
Yeah.
that we can't have butter in our house.
Oh my goodness. That's
So
amazing because a lot of America didn't. But you guys, but you saw it from the farm, you saw it from the source, so you understand it differently.
yeah, and then I was thinking back to this and prepping for our conversation, and I looked up the year of the book because I think it was close to then when I read it. But a guy named Tom Mueller published a book in 2013
Yep.
called Extra Virginity,
Yep. Oh
which
yeah.
is a very, very edgy title, but it's about extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
And he goes through the deep history. And I have
Yeah.
another person who I know, and his food philosophy I found very interesting, and probably I'm basing some of how I think about these things. Anyway, his sort of hack was if human beings have been eating something for 2,000 years, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
And olive oil certainly
As
qualifies.
many, oh, much longer than that. Yeah.
Yes, and has a wonderful history, but his history of olive oil in the United States is really interesting too, because even back in the 1800s, as the country was expanding and growing economically, there was a market for high-end olive oil, but that also created a market for hucksters and liars
Yep.
repackaging cottonseed oil and other things as olive oil because they could sell it for more,
Yep.
and the average consumer couldn't tell. So,
Yeah.
what have you learned through developing your business about some of this history, and how are you building on
Yeah.
that and educating
Yeah.
consumers?
Yeah. So that's very interesting. So at the time, I started as just a retail store, just a little tiny brick and mortar retail store. Customers were coming in saying, I love your products. I love what you're doing. Help me open a store. And so that's how we've grown. So I grew understanding retail and understanding my customers and talking to my customers every single day before I got to the level I am now, where we import raw ingredients, we manufacture a number of products, and then we distribute them worldwide to boutique retailers all over the country. But at the time when that book came out, I was working the store 6 or 7 days a week. And there was also another article that came out right around that time called Slippery Business by one of the New York publications, I think New York Times or someone. And that was all about olive oil and the scandal and how all olive oil is fake. And so I had customers coming in every single day challenging me and saying, well, how do you know your olive oil is real? And how do you know that you're not scamming us on olive oil? And so I learned very early on what was important for me, I think, to be able to prove to people that I knew what I was selling and I knew that quality was important. And honestly, most of them probably could still never tell the difference, but it mattered to me.
Well, and you could probably say this is my producer's name,
Yeah,
and
I
here's a
could. Yeah.
here's a picture of me
Yeah.
with the family
And
that produces this.
yeah. And that's actually part of the reason that I went. So I became the 12th certified extra virgin olive oil savant in the world. And Olive Oil Savants is a program. It's a group out of Australia that basically created this program, kind of like a wine sommelier. And it was my opportunity to prove to the world that I knew what I was buying and what I was selling. Um, so I at this time went to Chicago for this certification, if you will, but it's done all over the world. They'll do it, they'll go into Italy and they'll go into Spain and they'll test producers and suppliers and olive oil makers and anyone that wants to do it. Um, and that I think was a testament to proving what I knew. So going back to growing up with food and growing up with flavors, I was that kid that I smell every single thing I have in front of me before I taste it. Like I'll go out in the garden and I just touch things and I smell them. So it's called organoleptic. I love the ability to smell and taste what you have. And you being in a farming community, I I bet even with corn, a good producer goes out there and they can smell their crop and know what it is or how ripe it is and other elements to that also.
Well, there certainly is a distinct smell to a cornfield on a humid July day when it's
Yeah.
pollinating, and it's a combination of pollen and the green leaf and the humidity and all of that. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so I don't know if you're the first olive oil savant I have ever met.
Yeah. Well, there's not that many in the world. So yeah, I am.
But when you say,
Probably.
yeah, I'm much more familiar with sommelier,
Yeah.
because I'm a fan of wine and have met
Yeah.
some of those folks as well. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you have an organoleptic. It's a new
Yeah.
term for me. So
Like
you
a
have some
super
natural,
tasty.
yeah, and natural ability. But did you have to develop your capacity to distinguish some of the different scents and qualities that olive oil contain?
Yeah. I think a lot of it came naturally just because I already had an interest in it. And so I had I mean, I've been smelling all my food. I go out to my garden and I touch the tomato leaves and I pick the tomatoes up and I smell them. And I love arugula and I love different greens and all those smells and those tastes. So I was already kind of aware of that. And then when I went and did my certification, I think I was surprised at how easy it felt because I'd been tasting olive oils for years. And mind you, when the franchise went under, I started sampling different oils and different things to try and find producers. And I could tell the different qualities that felt right and felt wrong. Um, and so I think I had that innate sense within me. And then it was just proving that I knew. It was great to be able to take that course because then I could truly tell the difference between a fusty olive oil and a musty olive oil, which basically different things of whether the olives started to oxidize before they were pressed or whether the olives got too ripe on the tree. And so I was able to start deciphering some of those details more versus just good or bad. But
So, yeah, I've had two of your olive oil. So I got a truffle oil, so one of your
yeah,
infused oils, and
fun.
anything with truffle is really, anyway, that was excellent. But then
Fusion
I
amazing.
ordered just your extra virgin Italian oil, so no,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
flavor infused. And so my daughter-in-law Sarah spent some time in Italy working on an olive farm,
Oh,
and
fun.
so we did a taste test, and
Yeah.
that against I buy some olive oil from a
Was
farm
it
in California. Anyway,
okay?
your oil won. So
Like to hear that. That's amazing.
yeah, she has
I
a
mean, you never, I mean, yes, we are very particular about our oil. I test every single batch when it comes in. I mean, I go to the farms, I watch the practices. The practices are very different. I love California. I love America, but farming practices in America are very different than they are in Europe. In Europe, it's much more traditional. I mean, the olive trees are planted 8 meters apart. There's grass growing between them. The olives are all hand harvested. It's more about the romance of it and the art and the craft of it. And when you come into the US, I mean, the reason the US is founded is because we want things to be bigger and better and more efficient. And it's just we're producing a different product. And so that that affects the finished product. I mean, I went to California a few years ago to try and source a California olive oil that I could bring in, and I was sorely disappointed and I was upset because the trees were like tightly packed together in rows and there's no grass anywhere. And the machinery was massive that they drove down the rows to shake the trees and harvest the olives. And then they had to spray the trees after so they didn't die. And then the processing is it's just a very different process. So, um, not saying, I mean, it's just a different product. It's built for volume versus built for high quality.
yeah, and I've met whether it's that or Parmigiano Reggiano
Yes.
around Parma,
Yeah.
Italy, or
Yeah.
prosciutto, uh,
Mhm.
again in the Po River Valley of Italy. And
Yeah.
uh, you know, and we're producing some wonderful prosciutto from our pork
Yeah.
prosciutto style here in Iowa. So we're
Yeah,
doing
you
it,
have
but
some great ones. I have a charcuterie shop also. So I love
yeah.
charcuterie and cheese, and there are some great ones, but it tastes different in Italy.
Yeah. So I think, you know, what I see the next generation going toward is trying to take, you know, there's that American instinct for scale and economic efficiency,
Yeah.
and looking at the positive side of that, it's trying to probably, if you're making really good products, expose that to a wider audience because it'll be more
Yeah,
affordable.
exactly.
But then there's the artisanship by its nature is
Yeah.
more, yeah, trying to that extra detail to come up with something that's truly distinctive, reflects the terroir, and
Yeah,
it's just insanely great. Um,
exactly.
so yeah, I do think the next generation, hopefully, of American agricultural entrepreneurs and food entrepreneurs can balance those things perhaps a
Yeah.
little bit better.
I think it is tough because yeah, there's volume and then there's quality. And there's got to be a happy medium, but you always I think people sometimes give up a little bit of something to get the other.
Yeah. So, what have you learned through? You talked about trying to find some olive oil unsuccessfully in California.
Yeah.
How do you how do you think about developing your supply chain, your sources for great olive oils, great vinegars, great
Yeah.
truffles?
Yeah.
We got
I think
your
it's
we grow raspberries too, so we got your raspberry infused balsamic, which is
yeah. Ooh,
fantastic as well.
I love
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one won Best New Vinegar of the Year nationwide through the Specialty Food Association, I think in 2018.
Okay.
But um, I think I know what we do is, I mean, we want to make something the best that we can possibly make it. So it is about sourcing the best ingredients to produce the best product. And that was one of the things that when we started out is I started working with a single estate olive oil, something that I would sell without flavor. So something that I would sell you as a single estate high quality extra virgin olive oil. And then we started figuring out how to infuse that product to elevate the flavor. So instead of trying to mask a lower quality olive oil, we wanted to enhance a high quality olive oil flavor. So caramelized garlic extra virgin olive oil is our number one selling product. Anywhere that people use garlic, they can drizzle that oil in their pan. But the reason it's insanely great is because we start with high quality raw ingredients, and then it just makes an even better product. As far as sourcing goes, the biggest thing, I mean, it starts with a relationship. So, I mean, I meet the families, I meet the people behind the product, and I see if they have the same morals and same values as I do, if they want to produce things the same way that I do. And that's how we get started. It's been interesting over the years because as we've been growing, I do have to bring on other suppliers and bring on other sources. And I'll sit down with olive oil producers and I'll say, I produce infused oils and vinegars. That's my bread and butter. That's what we love to do. We sell a lot of it. I am looking for a very high quality extra virgin olive oil that has a smooth flavor, but still has some of that green grassy elements that I can use for infusing. Every single one of them sits there and they said, that's not normal. Why are you doing that? You don't need to use that good of an olive oil for infusing. And I said, but that's what I do different. And it's been amazing to see the reaction once they start understanding what I'm doing. And then I can usually taste with them and then they understand I really do know what I'm talking about. And so it's been really fun. It's been fun to build those relationships. It's been fun to build that trust. So I mean, I am seeking high quality producers, not the producers that are just selling into the commodity market.
Do those high quality producers find you? Do you find them? Or is
A
it a
little bit of
combination of
both.
the two? Okay.
Yeah, it's like any industry. All industries are slightly incestuous. Everyone kind of knows everyone. And you just kind of, whether you know them personally or whether you know them through someone else, you kind of just build relationships. So sometimes it's connections, sometimes it's me seeking them. Sometimes it takes years and we talk over years and to build that relationship. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had an amazing Greek oil over the years that a customer would come into our retail store, and then she had a friend on the East Coast whose family had an olive oil estate in Greece. So that's how I met her. So it's happened a number of different ways. Unfortunately, olive oil is a crop like anything, and sometimes you have good years and sometimes you have bad years. And we were not able to get Greek oil this last year because the volume of production was so low.
Ah,
Sometimes the quality wasn't where we wanted. So I will have crops come in that I reject because they
yeah.
aren't the level we need.
I've done some work in Greece as well. My guess would be if you develop some relationships there. I mean, my sort of simple observation there for opportunities was that there's some really fine Greek wines and Greek
Mhm.
olive oils,
Yeah.
but the better quality gets taken to Italy and relabeled as Italian.
I
And
don't know
then,
if that's the better quality.
okay,
See,
okay.
I think it's more the commodity stuff that gets
Ah,
shipped out. So Greece
okay.
and Spain, so Spain's actually the number one producer of olive oil, but most of it goes into Italy and is bottled and labeled as Bertolli or Colvita or things like that. But it's usually the commodity oil. Sometimes it's the stuff that has to be like enhanced with flavors or changed.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, Spain and then Greece, it depends on the harvest. Some years they have good harvest and some years they have not very good. So they definitely ebb and flow more than some of the other countries, I would say.
Mm,
But I don't know that they're taking their good stuff and sending it to Italy. And
okay.
it tastes very different. So a Greek olive oil tastes completely different than an Italian olive oil. If
Mm.
you're enjoying a single estate extra virgin olive oil from an estate in Greece, I like to use the statement, what grows together goes together. So if you're in Greece, think about the other foods that they're eating in Greece and the things that grow in Greece. A Greek olive oil tastes it like I tend to taste more chamomile or dried herbs on a Greek oil. It can be much more pungent and much more like, if you will, grassy on the back of your throat. I don't like to use the word grassy because we don't eat grass, but much more like bitter herbs in the back. But I get more dried herbs on a Greek oil, whereas a Italian oil tends to be sweeter and a lot more like tomato vines and sweetness of a tomato you'll taste in the olive oil. So very different.
Yeah, you give me a flash to like a really nice Greek feta cheese.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the sheep will graze on wild. I always laugh, but this is the way that my friends at least said it. They would say oregano, so oregano.
Yes. Yeah. You use a lot of oregano and chamomile in Greek olive oil if it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
How'd you say that?
Oregano. It's
Oh,
the
it's
way that they say.
oregano. I love it. I love it. I
Um,
love saying words with our American accent.
yes.
Bruschetta.
So
It's
you
fun.
talked about, for example, the raspberry vinegar winning an award in 2018, and
Yeah.
um, how do you develop your new products? How do you identify products that will resonate with consumers? Do you have a process, or is it more haphazard than that? What does your product
Yeah.
development process look like?
It's a little bit intrinsic. I mean, I think when you grow up in an industry and you're kind of creating an industry, you hear about flavors and you hear about things, and then my mind just gets going. I mean, I am an entrepreneur through and through. My mind doesn't stop. So I love to go out to restaurants. I love to eat out. I love if I pick things up, I'm never looking at them maybe as other people would. Like I'm picking things apart and I'm kind of understanding things from a more cellular level, I would say. And that being said, flavor is very much that way for me. Um, I I didn't fully understand even what I knew or what I appreciated. And then back in the day, I had a contractor that was building out my kitchen in my old retail store, and he says, "Oh, I need a 3/4 inch bit or something along that lines." And I was like, "How do you know what size you need for that?" And he said, "Brie, this is my craft. This is what I do." He says, "I know the bit that goes with the screw the same way that you know what flavor goes with what protein." And so I think it's an innate understanding, and then it's experimenting. It's taking things one step further. It's thinking outside the box, and then it's just experimenting and playing with things, just as a chef would in a restaurant. Start playing with things, seeing how we like it. I bring my staff in a lot. I bring my team in a lot to taste things and give ideas, and then we just start developing things, and we choose the things we like the best, and
I
then
was
we
going to
hope
say,
it
start
hope it
out,
works.
do I like it? Do the
Yeah.
people I work with, do they like it? Okay,
Yeah.
if it's all passing a test, then we can take it out to the wider world and see
Yeah,
if they like it.
exactly. Yep.
And
And then,
will people buy it?
yeah, that's exactly it. And most of the time it works. We have a few products, of course, over the years that have flopped. And some of them we knew they were going to flop because they're more obscure. Um, I definitely like to try and produce things that are a little more mainstream, that are likable by a larger variety of people, not overly obscure. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you describe your customer base?
Ooh, that's tough. I have lots of customers. So,
Okay.
I mean, I started as the retail store, so I was very involved with my customers. People that like to cook, people that like to travel. And then with our wholesale business having grown, we our customers for our wholesale business and where we put, so we basically put our oil and vinegar on tap setup. It's like a shop and shop that goes into boutique retail stores around the country. Um, our customer base for our wholesale business is retailers, independent retailers that have a passion for offering an experience to their customers. We have a saying that we always say within I mean, when I have meetings with my retail team and I have meetings with my wholesale team, we talk about it frequently, is if we help other people be successful, we will in turn be successful. So we talk about that a lot. With our wholesalers, we want to help them be as successful as possible with our products. We give them all the parts and pieces. We build a relationship with them. And then with our retail customers, same thing. We produce recipe cards. We want to make sure that you don't just take a bottle of olive oil home and then you say, oh, shoot, what do I do with this? So we produce recipe cards to try and give you the tools, the inspiration to be successful with that long term at home so that those products can become a staple. Um, our customers are anyone and everyone that enjoys cooking, enjoys travel, enjoys um, time with family. I don't even think you have to fully understand or know quality to know that you like Olivelle. It can kind of become even the start to you understanding that quality is in as simple as ingredient as an olive oil.
Well, now I'm embarrassed because it's Olivelle and I wasn't saying it the
Oh,
right way.
you know, we joke about that all the time. We say Olivelle, Olivelle, Target, Target. As long as you're calling our name, we are thrilled.
Oh, I should have asked you first.
No, no, no. I thought you did call it that the whole time.
Yeah. Um, after I sold my second business and I came back to start
Yeah,
with my professor gig in 2009, most of my students from agriculture, farm kid, agribusiness background, whatever. So anyway, I'm trying to do a little bit of education on our
yeah,
ultimate customers, our consumers, and there's some
yeah.
things I think are changing. And so I would describe, have you ever heard the term foodie or
Of
food
course.
food nerd? And they'd
Yeah.
be like, yeah, and I would describe some of the habits, and I would be like, have you ever met a foodie before? And most of the time it's like, no, no, no. And well, who are they? And they would say something like, well, like hippies from California. Oh, those Calif. Anyway, I said,
Oh, really?
what would you say if I told you the professor that's standing in front of you is probably a foodie, even
Yeah,
if an overgrown farm boy?
yeah.
Anyway, I don't do
So,
that anymore because I do
yeah.
think uh, in the
I
15 years since
Social
then,
media has changed things. Social
okay,
media has made being a foodie a normal thing. I think food is one of the number one posted things
okay.
on social media. It's huge now, but
Mm.
it wasn't 15 years ago. Yeah.
How do you think that shaped kind of American food habits or is beginning to? I mean, what I think I've begun to see
Yeah.
certainly from a health and what is what is in the things that we're eating. I'm seeing university students, so
Yeah.
18 to
Young.
22-year-olds asking that question, which 10 years ago I didn't see, and I see that now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think food food is a trend now and healthy food is a trend and people are aware. People are becoming more, you can see it in the stock market too. Fast food restaurants are dropping as far as their valuations and they're having to make switches as well. So now you're seeing, I think Wendy's came out with like a truffle burger or something. So they're trying to like convey the idea of gourmet and foodie, but ultimately, and maybe this is just how I'm target marketing because I am an extreme foodie. I love food. All the target marketing I get is about healthy food and about um, those type of elements. So I always question if everyone else is getting that same targeting or if it's just me, but my world is surrounded in food. So as far as I see, I mean, everyone's cooking more and appreciating that time with their family and in the kitchen and I think what we bring to the table too is we want to make food easy and approachable. So it doesn't have to be a massive labor intensive thing you cook all day long. And it also doesn't have to be two cans that you crack open and mix together and that's your casserole for the night. So there's this happy medium of like, let's get food on the table every single night that's good, healthy, fast, flavorful, um, but something that nourishes us and will keep us healthy in the long run.
So the recipes you mentioned earlier that you send out and are on your website
Yeah.
and are fantastic and part of
Thank
your
you.
email marketing, since I'm on that now.
Thank you.
Do those all come from you? How are those developed? Is there a spot you're trying to hit that's certainly using your ingredients in creative ways,
Yeah.
but yeah, for
Yeah.
time and convenience and but still good
Yep.
food and
So they originally started with just some of our favorite recipes that we were putting on paper. In our retail store, we do cooking classes. So we're constantly cooking with people in front of people. But yeah, it was our favorite recipes that we just wanted to start sharing with others and give them a tool so they could take it home and replicate it. All of those recipes are literally cooked in my kitchen at home. And then we have my dining room table, we like have the lights and we set up and we just photographed it. So that's how everything started. Um, I used to develop all the recipes. Now, not so much. I have a young lady that works with me that helps a lot, and I'm still involved in that. I do a lot more taste testing now than necessarily all the development. But
it's a hard job.
yeah. And for us, it's about trying to create balanced recipes. So looking through, we like to create courses or we like to create protein dishes because people like to create a protein for dinner. And then we like to cover all of our bases. So we make sure we have lots of recipes with pork and fish and chicken and some of our core staples. We like to call it like everyday gourmet. So the
Mhm.
everyday foods, you're going to come home, you're going to cook, but in an elevated fashion.
So you co-founded your company with your mother,
We did.
Michelle.
Yes.
So tell us about that decision. I think a little bit of it you mentioned earlier was she was trying to get you to move back home, and I
Yep.
understand that motivation certainly. But talk about your roles and relationship and how that's evolved over the course of
Yeah.
time.
Like obviously in the beginning, it was a little bit out of necessity, but also just out of, I mean, we work really well together. We are a mother and daughter. We fight just like every business partner. The best part about what we do though is if we do have a clash, we're an hour later, we're totally fine. And we just keep moving on as business partners and as mother and daughter. And it's amazing like that. So it's interesting. You have children. Um,
We do.
do you have business together?
We do some things together, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my son, my oldest son has a business and
Yeah.
so I'm an investor in his business and we certainly talk about things. And yeah, my
Yeah.
daughter is the producer of this podcast.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Um, my mom and I from the very beginning started 50-50. That was something that was adamant to me because I knew what I was bringing to the table. I didn't have money. And I mean, they were mortgaging their house and they did have a little bit of savings, but I knew what I was going to be bringing. And I would say I'm definitely more the visionary in the business, and she's kind of more the behind the scenes. So from the beginning, she's the one that's doing the books and making sure the bills are getting paid.
Mhm.
I'm the creative, and so I kind of am writing up here, and she's trying to pull me back a little, and then she's down here making sure everything and all the operations are happening from the books perspective. So it's been a really amazing partnership because I can trust her and I trust what she's doing and how we're able to grow. And then she kind of lets me run with it and get creative and hire where we need to and market where we need to and do the things that we need to keep growing. So
Well, that's the classic co-founder good mix of the
yeah,
visionary, the
yeah,
strategic, and the get things done, figure it out, operation oriented,
yeah,
detail oriented. So
yeah,
yeah, you get that built into a mother-daughter relationship and you're covering
yeah.
all of your bases, I think.
It's fun. It's been great. Yeah. I'm very lucky. So
So how have you evolved your marketing and your brand building for the business?
yeah,
Transitioning from being a retail local brand to something much bigger than that over the course of
yeah,
time. And then you mentioned social media changing how consumers look at things. Well,
yeah.
social media when you started the business. Let me see. I think the Facebook founding might have been 2004, 2005, but anyway, certainly in
Mark Zuckerberg and
2006.
I are the same age. So
Okay.
we were in college at the same time. And Facebook, when I was in college, was just a college program. Everyone had MySpace.
Yes.
If you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah, so social media did not exist like it does today. I mean, I didn't even have texting on my phone when this business started. Um, and so it's definitely evolved. I remember I'd hire some younger people that kind of understood Instagram and kind of understood Facebook. I'd still say there's a lot of opportunity we have with social media marketing. I'm definitely not a social media marketing expert, and I have not maybe captured that area to the level that we should. There's a lot of decisions we've made over the years as far as growth, and a lot of it's based on our ability to grow financially. We're a closely held company. We don't have investors. Everything we do is based off of our own cash flow and our own ability to grow. And so because of that is there's, it slows you down a little bit, and you have to be strategic and you have to be smart about what you do. So we don't take overly risky decisions, I guess, with marketing that would maybe be fun, but risky.
How did
um,
how did the pandemic impact your business,
It was
if at
actually
all?
very good for our business.
Okay.
So it started a little just like everyone. There was a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what was going to happen. Um, we kind of just laid low for a bit, but we sell food and people started cooking at home. And the best part about what we do is we have about 150 stores nationwide that have our shop and shop. And a huge number of them during that time said that we were what saved their business, which I think was very rewarding for us, is because when people were at home cooking, a lot of the stores we work with that our shop is in are kitchen stores. Um, they they service their customers, but our product is renewable. So if you have a bowl or a pan or a colander or a knife, you don't necessarily need to buy a new knife every month. But if you start using good olive oil, you have to refill that olive oil more frequently. And so we definitely have the ability to go in those stores and help them out. And so the pandemic was very good for us. Our online business grew significantly. Our retailers all grew significantly. Um, 2022, then coming off of the pandemic, was an interesting readjustment. And then we're back um, to high growth again. So
Okay. Well, good for you.
yeah.
Well, I
Um,
was in the way of marketing, I was going to ask also about storytelling. So,
yeah,
I and next week I'll be teaching a session on storytelling because I just think
fun.
that's one of the core skills of an entrepreneur
Yeah,
is being able to tell a story. And
yeah.
so you've got a good one that we relate through this, but I think your marketing materials, your website, how do you think about storytelling and how that's helpful and how it's plays a role in your marketing?
It's interesting you say that, and I thank you so much. I feel like I have a lot of opportunity with storytelling. And I think it's because I love running the business. I love the operations. I love the growth, and I love strategizing on how to become more efficient in manufacturing and how to do these things that sometimes I feel like I take a back seat to storytelling. Um, I, as far as the brand goes, I think it's just about inspiring the customer, and the customer starts doing the storytelling. So I have a vision for how I want things to look and the details in that look and the experience I want the customer to have when they get home with it. And I think that kind of can convey to storytelling. But like if you pick up our bottle, we're telling people how to use the product. We're not just telling you what it is. And so I think it naturally tells a story, and it tells kind of a foodie story and so forth. But it's interesting you say that, because I feel like we still have a lot more opportunity with storytelling that we haven't captured yet, because we do have a great story. I mean, we have a great story about how we founded the products, and the quality of the products we bring in are superior to anything else you're going to get in the market. And I don't feel like I actually tell that story as much as I should. Um, and so, yeah, stay tuned, because maybe over the next few years, we'll actually continue to enhance that element of it, because we have it there. We have the foundation. We let the products speak for themselves. We know when people taste them, they're going to love them. But if we just told them the story on top of it, it could be even more explosive. So,
Yeah, I try to think of examples of this with food. Maybe it's Stanley Tucci, in his
yeah,
series in Italy, but it's just
yeah,
watching him eat something. And
yeah,
anyway, we can watch somebody else eating something, and if it's fantastic, it's not hard to tell. They don't have to say this is wonderful. It just shows in
exactly.
their face and their expression and their
Exactly. And
sounds that they make.
that's how we are in the store now, is people will come in and they'll be like, "Oh, well, how do you know this is real olive oil?" Or "How do you know this?" Or when people try and we're like, we know this is our founder is the 12 certified olive oil taster. We have an amazing process in place to verify that it's not only the best olive oil, but it's tested chemically and so forth. But just taste it. Taste it. If you
Try
don't
it.
love it, yeah, if you don't love it, that's fine. Let's find something you do love, but just taste it. If you taste it, I can guarantee you, if you taste my vinegars, you will never find a vinegar that's better than mine. Like I challenge you to do that. So it's our vinegars are amazing. They change food. My kids bring vinegar out to our table like some families bring ketchup and ranch dressing. Like we put balsamic vinegar on everything we eat. And I mean, black garlic tamari balsamic vinegar and smoked balsamic vinegar and fig balsamic vinegar, but they're thick and sweet and well balanced and they elevate your dish. So,
Oh, you're giving me a flashback to my first tour of an acetori in Modena, Italy. Yes.
oh,
And
it's fun, isn't
it
it?
isn't that I hadn't tasted good vinegar, but yeah, when you taste something that's at that really
Well, and when you
rare.
start getting into the true, like the 25-year age, the little tiny barrels that have been going, or maybe that cask has been going for 50 or 100 years, that's something you will never sell mass market. And that
No.
is a product that's so specialty. I mean, those casks produce less than a liter of vinegar a year, and that does not leave the family. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, a question about where you are. So you built your business at home. Um, so you're building this in the great middle of America, and I
The
think
olive oil business in Bozeman, Montana. Yes.
yeah. So talk about how you think about that. And
Yeah.
again, we eat everywhere, and
I know.
we produce a lot of our agricultural products in the
Yeah.
middle part of the country as well. So how
Yeah.
do you think about that, building your business in Bozeman?
Yeah. When I got started, I definitely heard, well, why are you growing an olive oil business in Bozeman, Montana? Olives don't grow there. Um, and then I'll never forget having someone from, I believe, our state ag department. She says to me, coffee doesn't grow in Montana either. But yet there's hundreds of roasters all over that are selling it as a locally made product. And so that was kind of an eye opener to me. And I think it gave me validation for the fact that I can still do what I love and what I want. Um, Ultimately, olives have to be pressed within hours of picking, anyways. And then once the olive oil is produced, it's produced. It's not going to, I mean, it can change in quality, but as long as it's stored properly and as long as it's moved properly, the quality is there. And so it wasn't necessary for me to live next to an olive oil estate to do what I do. Ultimately, I'm I'm a customer focused brand. I'm all about making the products approachable for customers. I don't want to be so snobby that it's not approachable. So I don't want to just sell an olive oil that's only for these super elite people and only from this little farm. I want the product to be approachable and something people can use every single day. And so I think that validation that I can buy the best of the best, the raw ingredients, and to you, I mean, you have ag students, so it's a little bit different. I have the ability to say yes or no on products. Because I'm not growing it, I can say yes on this and no on this one. Um, the other thing, I mean, I buy from the farms, so I have no middleman in the middle. I mean, I'm literally going to the farm, sourcing the raw ingredients, and then it comes to me. So as far as I'm able to offer the highest quality product at a very competitive price because there's no one in the middle. So it works. I'm able to build my business in my hometown and I'm able to support a lot of people here and provide jobs and it's been pretty amazing.
And elevate the taste of
Of food all over.
Bozeman and beyond.
Yep. And we have a store in Norway. So we make everything in Bozeman and then we actually export it back over to Europe and we have stores in Norway. So
My
it's
God,
kind
if
of,
we can't make fun of the Norwegians about their food, you start, what are we
I
going to
know.
be able to do?
Well, now they are not just stuck with potatoes and meatballs and white
Okay.
rice.
Yeah.
Now they have Olivelle to elevate that.
Well, the entrepreneur's ethic is about how entrepreneurs like you make decisions. So let's kind of wind our conversation towards the end by asking about some decisions that, in retrospect, you think were important. So I'll ask first, what's an example of a practical decision that you've made that, in hindsight, was important for you or for your business or for both?
Yeah. I mean, I can give you an example of one most recently. As I mentioned earlier, we work with agricultural products. They have variances year to year. Um, like an olive fly or an olive moth can change the olive oil. They might have to pick it a week or two earlier, and then the olive oil is really too bitter to produce. Or this year, I mean, to be honest, Italy is having a huge struggle with their production this year, quality and quantity. I had just this last year, I had a crop of olive oil that came over. You know, I have we have our processes in place. We sample products, we verify that that's what we want. We know the farms, we know the estate. I had an entire container of olive oil that came over, so $200,000 worth of olive oil come over, and the oil did not match the sample, and it was not to the standard that we would approve of. So that was my entire inventory until I could get something to replace it. And we made the decision to not sell that product and to sit and start scrounging for oil that we would consider of the quality that we want. Now, it's not that the olive oil didn't test properly. That olive oil, I sent it off to a lab. It still tested as extra virgin, but it was not to the organoleptic quality that we wanted and needed and expected for our brand to continue to move forward. So I mean, that's just one example that happens on a continual basis. I will always hold product and prevent selling it rather than selling something of an inferior quality. And
Okay.
so sometimes it comes at a cost, a financial cost. And
Two
we
hundred
just
thousand
keep
dollars is a
scrambling.
serious amount of olive oil.
Yeah, they did eventually take it back. It
Okay.
just took a while.
Negotiating with
And
Italians, I'm sure, is
it's
fun.
definitely dampened the relationship, but it's what you have to do. I mean, I'm here to protect the brand and protect the quality that I sell to my customers. And I hope that they can trust me. And it's decisions like that that I know will continue to help us thrive for years to come. It's not just about the today, it's about the tomorrow. So,
We'll turn to next, and your
yeah.
last example might hit this as well. But what's an example of a principled decision you've made that in hindsight was important?
So I would say a principal decision we've made is probably our business model that we've made. Um, so for example, back in the day, some of it was financial decisions. When I got started with wholesaling our oils and vinegars, a lot of people are quick to go grocery. I want to sell in grocery. I want to sell in grocery. I want mass market. That's where it's at. The reality is for you to put that product on a grocery store shelf, you have to buy the shelf space. Um, it's a huge financial investment. You have to have distribution. You're not necessarily going to make any money. And then you have no idea if customers are even going to buy that product when it hits the shelves. So one of the biggest decisions I made is back, and this has probably been 8 years ago, we started looking at our most successful customers, and it happened to be the people that went all in with us. So it happened to be the ones that we had the best partnership relationship with. It was the ones that did the training with us. They used the recipe cards. They talked about our products. They loved our products. Their staff was using our products. It's our customers that cook with their team members. It's the ones that built the relationships like we had built the relationships with our staff in our stores. We're the most successful with our products. So we made the decision at that time to work exclusively with boutique retailers. So we now build exclusive boutique retail relationships across the country with mom and pop shops. So in the food industry, that's very different than how a lot of people work. A lot of people will start boutique and then take that same product and put it on grocery store shelves. And it's been very important for us to continue to build those relationships with the boutique retailers, help them be successful. And then in turn, it's continued to help us grow. And then those retailers are talking about us with other retailers. And then they continue to grow together as well. So
Well, that is cool.
that's our biggest decision practically that we've had to make is saying no to some of the big guys because we respect the relationship of our small
Yeah.
boutique retailers. And they
Yeah.
do a big volume with us. So there's
Hmm.
nothing to shame there.
Sure. Well, what's an example of a weird or maybe whimsical, at least, decision that you've made that in hindsight was important?
That's interesting. I don't know that I would say I've done anything super weird or whimsical. I mean, everything I do is whimsical. I don't work for the government. I don't have to follow certain protocols. So if you ask my staff, like I'll walk in and be like, we're doing this today. And then we just run with it. What those are, I don't know because it's how I work. It's how I operate. Everything's a little whimsical. We have our retail store that we had for 15 years. And we built our wholesale business, and our wholesale business is really kind of our growth and our bread and butter. But I knew that our retail operation was important as a foundational to our business, our flagship for our wholesale business, I should say. And so 3 years ago, our lease was coming up on our boutique retail store, and we made the decision to buy a building and build out a new retail store. I don't know if that's whimsical or weird, but I know that it was exhausting, and it's a lot of work. So it's, I mean, more or less that I have this amazing business growing, but then we still kind of stopped and said, this still is really important. Let's keep this going at the same time.
I was going to say some of the, maybe regular business advice might be just focus on the distribution and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
not this retail location. Do you do that because you create learning in your organization through having a place where actual customers walk in and ask questions? Is that
Think
part
so.
of
I
it?
think it's a little bit proof of concept. So we can, and actually just this last year, we held a retreat for our wholesalers to come to, and we were able to bring them into our retail store and show them how we operate, show them that we know things at their level, we understand things on a retail level, and and how to be the most successful at it, if you will. So again, it's always about education, training, constant change. I never stay the same. Nothing that I do tomorrow will be the same as it is today. This is the worst I'll ever be. Tomorrow will always be a little bit better. And the retail store is just our way of continuing that education, continuing that training, and continuing that improvement, if you will. So, and then being able to share that with our customers. So our customers, both retail and wholesale.
Okay. Well, let me ask just one more question, Brie, to see if I can stump you with
Okay.
an unfair question.
Okay.
What's your favorite meal?
That's funny. Um, there's it honestly, every single day is a little bit different, what I feel like. I love ethnic food, but when I say ethnic food, my favorite type of food is anything Asian. I love Thai food, I love Vietnamese food. And the reason I say that is because it's all about experiencing the different flavors. So we
Mm.
talk a lot about the five tastes or the five flavors. So it's sweet, salty, sour, spicy, and then some will say umami. And I feel like Thai food ties those four together in like perfect harmony. So when I eat like a really good Thai dish, it gets my whole mouth exploding with flavor. But I mean, I love Italian food, I love Greek food. Um, I love everything. I'm that person that when I travel somewhere, I want to find the hole in the wall and I want to find how it's done authentically. I just got back from Hawaii and I ate spam the entire time. So going back to our spam, like you cannot go to Hawaii and not eat spam musubi and spam fried rice and the things that they eat and trying to find the most authentic version.
That's great. Well, Bree, thank you for taking time to share with us. Is there any way that those in our audience should find you? Website, social media
Yeah.
presence?
Yeah, our website is olivelle.com. Social media is all Olivelle. So it's
Hmm.
Olive with an LLE. My mom's name is Michelle. So that's how we came up with our name. It's Olive with the end of Michelle on it.
Very
Very
good.
basic.
Good.
But
Well,
yeah, you can find all our products, recipes, and everything there.
okay. Well, thank you.